Recording in progress.
And you are live.
Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of Thursday, July 1st, 2021. If we can start with roll call, please.
Chair Dennison.
Here.
Vice Chair Pevsner. Commissioners Dellis, Hutt,
Here.
and Spears.
Present.
All right. I would look for an approval of the agenda as presented.
Also move.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next is rotation of chair and vice chair. Boy, did Commissioner Pevsner pick the wrong day to be absent. The term will serve from July 2021 to June 2022. Is there anybody who would like to particularly be nominated? Race to not mute.
Commissioner Pevsner has joined us.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Lucky.
Connected tough. Why? What'd you guys do?
You've
We
been appointed.
haven't yet, but we're about to nominate you for chair.
Oh man, I was hiding in other. Okay.
Is that a nomination that you would accept, Chair Pevsner?
What would happen if I wasn't here? Could you nominate me without me being here, like the running club?
We most certainly would. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Go ahead.
All right. Is there somebody who's interested in being the vice chair?
I think that would be Peggy on the next go around.
Oh,
Yeah. On rotational, I think it should be Commissioner Dallas.
No, I'm still getting my bearings here. I came in as short term.
That's what being vice chair is all about. You get a year to learn and watch.
I'm going to sit this one out.
Any other volunteers? I'm fine to be vice chair if nobody else is going to do it.
Excellent choice. You've done a very good job this year. You really have.
I'm good with that.
All right, then if somebody will make a nomination.
I'll nominate. Oh, go ahead, Peggy, since you're trying to get out of it.
Nominate Tom Dennison to be vice chair.
And do you have a nomination for chair?
Oh, and Lillian Pevsner to be chair.
All right.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously, and the meeting is yours, Commissioner.
Okay.
Chair Pevsner.
Okay. So where am I? Wait a minute. I lost my.
We are at the approval of minutes.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let's, the approval of minutes from the last, of this meeting. Anybody have any changes they want to make or suggestions? I think we just have with the one item, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I move approval of the agenda.
I'll second.
So move. And all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. As well. Those opposed? Okey doke. Move forward. So can someone give me the next item on the agenda here real quick, because I can't view it. From
Approval
my...
of minutes.
Oh, okay. So we need the approval of the minutes from the last meeting then.
I think there's a typo on line 109.
Okay.
Vice Chair Pesner feels instead of fees that it could be a good educational experience.
Oh, thank you for the typo or grammar or whatever it was. Anything else?
Hearing no other corrections, I will move approval of the minutes with the noted corrections.
Very good. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, Bob seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I will abstain.
Okay, that's right. Okay, one abstention. Okay, moving forward. Is this, gosh, I got to get the other screen up, but just remind me, Vince, are we at the
Council
Okay.
liaison report.
council liaison report? Councilman Parkhurst.
Yeah, I just have one small thing. At the city council meeting, what was it, whatever it was, the last one, I gave a brief summary of the discussion on youth commissioners and raised some of the high-level concerns that you guys had at the last meeting. That's all I have to report. I just add that I kept it general, just that we look forward to seeing the report that came in. But I wanted to highlight some of the challenges that we had in that discussion, that you guys had in that discussion.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions or? Nope. Okay. So I think this is the time when we let the public comment on an item that's not on tonight's agenda. If anybody is interested in bringing up an issue, you have 3 minutes, or I'll give you 4 minutes. Is anybody standing by to do public comment on something that is not on our present agenda tonight? And counting. Okay, if nobody waiting in the wings, I'll wait till the countdown goes, but we'll move on then to our first item on the public hearing tonight, which is the discretionary demolition permit. And I guess we'll start with disclosure of from the commissioners on site visits, ex parte comments, etc. Okay. Anybody want to talk about going by the site? Anything they want to declare?
I went by the site yesterday and talked to the architect and said hi to the owner's husband and walked the site with the architect.
Okay. Bob? You?
I did as well.
Okay. Very good. I rode by it. Oh, go ahead, John.
I was just saying, I visited the site, but except for the emails in the record, I didn't have any communication or discussions with anyone.
Right. And I rode by the site because it's close to my house, enough that I can ride by on my bike. And I've looked at it. I know the property pretty well, but I spoke to no one.
Same here.
Okay. Tom, you good?
I also went by the site, but spoke to nobody.
Okay, very good. All right, we'll move on. Do we have a presentation?
We have a PowerPoint presentation for you delivered by Senior Planner Lynn.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Claire.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. The Planning Commission will be reviewing a discretionary demolition permit 2002 and a design review permit 2006 for the property located at 358 North Cannon Avenue. So before I start, we have received 7 written comments, and those comments were forwarded to all commissioners for your consideration. The project is located on the south side of Cannon Avenue between Cannon and Theresa Lane, north of Grandview Avenue, outlined here in red. The lot is a 0.5 acre trapezoid-shaped lot located in the R1 zone and with the general plan land use designation of a residential low density. The adjacent properties are also zoned R1 with a mixture of 1 and 2-story single-family residences. The applicant is requesting the Planning Commission to consider a demolition permit for demolishing the existing structure and to construct a 4,961 square foot single-story residence, including a detached garage. Pursuant to the code, structures that are 75 years or more shall be required a discretion demolition permit, and for construction that's greater than 3,500 square feet on a lot that's greater than 11,000 square feet is subject to a design review permit. The code also allows the director to refer any applications to the Planning Commission at the director's sole discretion. This project qualifies for a categorical exemption class 1 and class 3 as it involves a replacement project. Here are the side photos of the existing structures built circa 1930s. The property is currently occupied 28 protected species and a 936 square foot single family residence, and also a 2-story accessory structure with 1-car garage on the bottom and a artist workshop and a bathroom on the 2nd floor. In 2015 and 2019 historic resources evaluation report has been prepared, and both report concluded that the property does not meet the eligibility criteria for listed as a national or California or as a local landmark. However, the property is associated with a local artist, Elmer Marvin Weiss, who is a known figure in the community. So staff recommend that the historic evaluation report to be placed in the library archive, recognizing the contribution of the local artist, and a plaque shall be placed on the property to acknowledge the artist. So the proposed project is a co-compliant project that meets all the requirements for lot size, lot coverage, building height, gross floor area, and setbacks, and all the parking requirements. The applicant will also prepare a vicinity map of the 300-foot radius map. It includes 43 neighboring properties that were noticed. The analysis showed that the average building size is 1,792. The average lot size is 14,427. And the proposed building size is a 4,184 square feet, which is the habitable space. And the project lot size is 25,096 square feet. So the proposed project would be the third largest home in this neighborhood. Here is the site plan and LID, drainage, and landscape plan together. On the left-hand side, there is a survey map that shows the existing 28 protected species and 2 structures. And on the right-hand side is the proposed structure and where it's situated. The green canopy identifies the 2 oak trees that will be removed, and the other 26 trees will be protected in place. In terms of the LID drainage plan, the architect prepared and proposed 6 locations for the dry well, as indicated in the blue dots. So it shows the proposed structure that is 25 feet from the front property line and 25 feet from the east property line. And it's set back about 59 feet from the west and 60 feet from the south. Here's the topography of the existing condition. There is about a 15-foot drop from the street level to the southeast corner. And to the right is the proposed conceptual landscape plan that incorporate a plant palette, a paving area, and also planting groups and proposed hydrodrome that will comply with the water efficient landscape ordinance. This is the floor plan. The floor plan includes a centralized courtyard, a living room, dining room, kitchen, family room, a powder room, laundry, 4-bedroom and 4-bath with a detached 3-car garage. This is the section elevations that cut through the interior courtyard. It shows the interior elevation from the courtyard. You can see the gallery and with the arched porch that's for the master suite. The height to the top of the roof is 16 feet and 10 inches. The proposed project depicts a horizontal massing, a combination of a gable and hip and also a shed roof with exposed rafter tails and a minimal eave. The interior centralized courtyard visually connects the living quarters, connects the indoor and outdoor space. The courtyard also allows the structure to obtain a shallow roof height. Here are the elevation, east elevation and the south elevation. South elevation is where the entrance would be. So the exterior is finished with smooth stucco surfaces. The fenestration includes a combination of long and narrow arched casement and multi-paned window. It exhibits the characteristics of a Spanish style architecture, incorporating the mission tile and also the tile tube, the tube vents. Here is the west and north elevation, and the north elevation is facing the street front. The material and the design are consistent throughout the entire 4 sites. And you can see the 3D renderings here. The color palette is primarily earth tone in white with the accent of a teal color trim for the window and a wood panel front door. Here are the garage elevations. Shows that it is consistent with the primary structure. It's designed in Spanish architectural style. This is the 3D renderings incorporating the adjacent residences. Here is the site elevation that shows the site profile, where to the right is towards Cannon Drive with an elevation of 100 feet. And at the lowest point is 85, that is at the most southeast corner. Material that will be used for the project is a smooth stucco finish exterior with warm cotton ball color. The front door is in a dark walnut color. The clad window frame are in this teal green color, and the trim for the window frame are in almond white color. So discretionary demolition and design review permit finding has to be made in order for the Planning Commission to approve the project. This is a summary of the discretionary demolition permit findings, that the structure proposed for demolition has no local state significance. As mentioned before, it was determined by the Historic Resources Evaluation Report that received. However, Elmer Marvin Weiss is an important contributor to the city as a cultural resource on a local level. So Historic Evaluation Report should be placed in the library archive, recognizing the contribution of the local artist. And a plaque shall be placed on the property to acknowledge the artist. The proposed demolition activity will comply with all applicable requirements for demolition, and it will not unreasonably interfere with the use, possession, or enjoyment of the surrounding. There is a demonstrated need for the demolition activity requested to be available for the new single-story, single-family residence and the 3-car garage. The result of the demolition activity is consistent with the objective of general plan with respect to the residential low-density development. The public interest, convenience, and necessity to require the demolition activity to be undertaken at a location requested, in that the demolition activity will meet all the building code, fire code, and city zoning code requirement. Here is the design review finding summary that the proposed project is consistent with the general plan destination of residential low density and the R1 zoning code. The project will not unreasonably interfere with the use, possession, and enjoyment of the surrounding, where the proposed project is a 1-story residence, and it does not encroach into any side yard setbacks or angle plan. And the 3-car garage will accommodate the required on-site parking for the residences and will not interfere with surrounding adjacent properties. The height, bulk, scale, mass, and siding of the proposed project is compatible with the existing neighborhood, landform, and surrounding, as the project offers more than half of an acre in lot size with the proposed building height at 16 feet 10 inches. The lot coverage is at 22%, and the proposed Spanish architectural style is compatible with the existing neighborhood. The proposed project reflects the scale of the neighborhood, and it is not visually overpowering or dominates the neighborhood. The Spanish architectural style is proportional and consistent with the village setting. The project is set back from the property line, and it's relatively on a leveled pad in the center of the property. The proposed single-story will not interfere with views or the privacy of the neighbor. And the project will remain single-family use and is compliant with all development standards that will not unreasonably interfere with the noise level of the neighborhood. The proposed project exhibits a coherent project-wide design, and each structure on the site is compatible with each with other portion of the project, regardless whether they are publicly visible or not. So the project demonstrates a coherent design throughout. with series of balanced arch window fenestration, stucco wall finishes, and the wrought iron grate details are carried throughout the elevation. This project is not requesting relief from the development standards for any reason. For finding number 8, the project is a custom designed project, and it is innovative and thoughtful architecture with the material and color chosen that contribute to the character of a Spanish architecture. The project responds to the site by proposing the new structure on the existing building pad in the center of the property, where it has least impact on the existing oak trees and will not require significant grading, excavation, or infill. The property is not a historic structure. However, we still suggest that the historic resources evaluation report to be placed with library archive and a plaque to be placed on the site. The natural landscape is preserved to the extent possible by siting the building footprint in the similar location to the existing, minimizing the grade change to preserve the natural landform. The project also proposed to retain 26 protected specimen tree and mitigate the removal of the 2 protected trees. The siting of the structure is in keeping with the landform. In particular, the proposed project situated approximately at the existing building pad and retained substantial amount of open space on all sides. The primary residence sits back 25 feet to the north and east and 59 feet from the west and the south property line to maximize open spaces and public views to protect the neighbors' views and privacy as well. The new materials and details proposed for the project are high quality, and building materials are compatible with overall Spanish architectural style, and it will meet all requirements by code. The project is subject to the California Energy Code, the city's low impact development and water efficient landscape ordinances. The project does provide a conceptual landscape and LID plan by the architect, but is still subject to the engineering plan for on-site water retention resulting from the proposed structures. The project is also subject to provide a solar voltaic system per the California Building Code. Alternative before the Planning Commission this evening is to approve the application for Discretionary Demolition Permit 2002 and the Design Review Permit 2006 pursuant to the Planning Resolution 20-13, or to approve the application with modifications or deny the request by identifying the findings that the Planning Commission feels cannot be made and the basis for rejecting those findings, or continue the subject project and provide directions to the applicant and staff. That concludes my presentation, and our applicant is online with us. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Great. Thank you, Claire. Any commissioners have any direct questions from Claire? Before I go ahead, Bob.
In the application on A1, it talks about the dry wells that are going to be drilled on the site. And those I assume are compliant with the low impact development standards?
Those are proposed dry wells by the architect. So since there is no engineering drawing, we're not sure of the calculation, if that is suffice. But at a planning or plan check stage, then we'll have it reviewed by our civil engineer and determine if that is sufficient.
I'm not totally, I don't know everything about the LID rules, but that takes care of all the water that lands on the structures, correct?
Yes, on all the new impervious surfaces.
Right. So my question more than is that there's a natural swale on the east side of this property. And the property slopes from Cannon back on down 15 feet. And that swale directs runoff into the backyard of the people in Teresa Lane and on Grandview. And we've heard from them. And my question is that I was always the impression that if I was a property owner, the water that lands on my property has to somehow be dealt with on my property and not go on to others. Is that true?
So what I know from our city engineer is you cannot intensify the water runoff, the existing water runoffs. So whatever that is existing, it can be remain as it is, but for the new structure, you will have to capture all the runoff that is from the new proposed structure.
So I guess then my question is, does the patio on the east side that extends into that swale impact the runoff from the property into the neighbors?
Bob, maybe we'll let the applicant's architect address that if they've got, if you want to, I'm not sure. We can bring that back if Claire wants to.
Well, I just want to know is, I mean, if it's a regulatory issue.
Oh, you're looking at the regulation. Okay.
So, I mean, if the rule says that you can't intensify, how do we know if that patio does or does not intensify? Because it cuts into that swale.
Peggy?
So, and I mean, the architect was talked to me about, oh, well, it's a natural stream bed and we can't touch it. Okay. So does that patio somehow impose on that? And is that a problem?
Peggy? Oh, go ahead, Claire. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to add that, so all the runoff from the patio will have to be subject to the LID.
Okay, so go ahead, Peggy.
When I was at the site, I looked at the ravine too. In fact, I came back a second time because it's kind of ahead. And what appears to be happening is the water is in a ravine there that goes down the side of the property, but it kind of daylights up on Cannon. And there are two grates in the gutter there, presumably city-owned grates. And they seem to have overflows near the top that go under the curb. So that ravine seems to be part of a greater drainage system to the area. So in my mind, that drainage is a bigger problem than just the water. You know, the water on that side in that swale is coming from up above off the property to a certain degree in a heavy rain.
Okay.
I could see it. So it seems like all the project has to do is keep the water that they're letting seep in naturally under control. It would be unreasonable for them to, you know, control water coming onto their property off the street.
Right. Okay.
If that's the case.
Maybe I'll go ahead, Bob.
Is that a city issue? Does the city need to change the curbing on that upper corner?
We wouldn't know this at this time. I think we're going to have to consult further with Public Works and our civil engineer to look at that more closely. We did reach out to him with some of these questions. So we need to get more information from them. And he was saying that this generally could also be handled either with retention basin towards the base of that natural swale to keep water on site and percolated it into the ground, or you can do it as a natural swale,
Okay.
natural bioswale.
So it's somewhere between the LID and whatever the other component of the regulations are.
Right.
Yeah.
And once we get structural counts, then usually this is handled during plan check. This will be further worked out within this open space area.
Great. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have two questions. The first one is maybe best for the applicant, and it goes on more about the drainage. The plan sheds the water on the exterior portions of the roof into these dry wells. But maybe you could explain to us the interior portions that go to the courtyard, how the water is dealt with there. Because it seems to me you don't want water piling up in your internal courtyard. So when you give your presentation, you can answer that for us. And the second question is directed at staff. This application is before us because it was referred by the director, or has it been appealed?
It was referred to by the director.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, let's let the applicant's architect, who I think who's standing by, address those questions under the presentation if you've got something to present.
I think you're on mute.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're still on mute.
Yeah, it's on mute.
There you go.
I do that almost every time. I get so busy listening. Yeah, hi, I'm James Coyne. I'm the architect of the project, and I'm based out of Old Town Pasadena. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like you all live by there. I met a few of you yesterday. When I first went to visit this client a few years ago, I actually couldn't find the house at first. And so, you know, one of our goals was to have that same quality. It's such a wonderfully secluded, you know, heavily vegetated site. We talked about various things. At one point, we actually were talking about a two-story scheme, and she and her daughter do a lot of painting and whatnot. And we started talking about, you know, ancient architecture, and, you know, the courtyard it's a, you know, Greece, Rome, Spain, Mexico, China. It's kind of a very indigenous home style, you know, all over the world. And they got very excited about the idea of having a nice private indoor space and keeping the building really low. And so that's kind of how the design evolved. And the idea of driving by and not really knowing it's there, it's something they want to keep very much. And so when we cited it, the courtyard of our building is pretty much, it's a little bit off, but it's pretty much where the existing courtyard is between the two buildings. And so you kind of have to do that because of the way the trees are. But like I talked to some of the people that were out there yesterday, it's almost as if we took the two buildings that are there now and kind of connected them with two perpendicular wings, because the front wing and the back wing are kind of where the house is now and where the garage is now. And so we just kind of connected them. So we thought that was a way to minimally, you know, minimally affect everything around it. I won't say too much because Claire said a lot. The new building, it's a classic courtyard scheme. It's in the Spanish colonial revival style. It's about 17 feet tall at its highest point. It's really nestled within the trees. I mean, the buildings that are there are completely under the trees, and we have some of that going on. We tried to keep it low. We tried to keep it simple. We tried to keep it humble. And we just tried to use the materials that we use on all of our Spanish colonial houses that we do in, Pasadena and La Cañada and other surrounding areas. It's nothing showy. It's got all the classic materials. If you got a chance to look at the arborist report, there's 28 oak trees, and we've worked on sites like this before. It's as beautiful as they are, they actually are all fighting each other for sunlight and for water. And if you got the chance to read all the arborist report, sadly enough, I don't have the breakdown in front of me, but most of them they rate trees like you do school grades from A to F. The vast majority of them were D's and D pluses. There were some C's. I think there was one B. And that's really just because there's frankly too many trees fighting for water and sun. So we talked to the arborist early on. He said, yeah, if you lose an interior tree or two or three, but you still keep the donut of trees around the building, that should work. And we've built very close to trees before, and we put in our specs that all the excavation near the trees is done by hand. We put in there that they use an air spade when they get to roots, which is an air spade is basically like when you go to the gas station, you have an air hose. They basically blow the dirt away from the roots. And then when we encounter roots over a certain size that we need to keep, we put caissons in like you would when you're building a pier in the water, in the ocean, and then we span them. So we're not going to be, oak trees have roots like a bicycle wheel. They spread out, so you don't want to be cutting them all off. So we have contracted with the arborist. He's going to be on site all the time while we're digging, and so we're going to totally take care of the trees. The owner loves the trees. So yeah, there's 28. We're going to remove 2. Which will actually help the ones around it. And then on the drainage, yeah, it's a kind of a tricky issue. The interior courtyard's fairly easy. We're going to have area drains in there that will go under the house and go out to the dry wells, or go out to, if we're going to pump water to the street, or how we're going to do it. That's usually something we handle in plan check after we know we have the basic design approval, and we don't hire our civil engineer this early. We know it can be done. So once we know we have an approval, we have our civil engineer board, and there'll be all kinds of area drains in the patios and area drains by the doors and everything. So all the surface water will be picked up. And as far as that ravine, as we've been talking about, we'll do whatever is necessary. Claire and I were going back a little bit forth in emails today. In most communities I work in, when you see something like that, where water's coming from above and it's going through your property, then it goes to the properties below, there's a terminology, whether it's a natural ravine or a natural flow path or something. It sounds like Claire's working with engineering to determine what it really is. If we can't work in there, which is what I assumed, we won't, but we could certainly add rocks, we could certainly add riprap, we could do things to slow water down. But if we can't work in there, we will just stay away from it and leave it natural, because that's kind of what our goal was to leave everything as natural as possible. So we're very flexible on that. We'll go either way. We'll work in there if you want us to. If we need to leave it alone, we're happy to do that. And if there's anything subtle we can do I was talking to one of the commissioners yesterday, we could add a lot of rocks so that water just doesn't go gushing through the neighbor. And it would be good to look at that curb, because near the end of the visit time yesterday, we did discover those 2 grates up there. And like the one commissioner said, it seems like there's some sort of street drain that then have overflows that dump out onto our property. And if those holes weren't there, really none of the water would go through, it seems. And then lastly, I've seen all the neighbor letters, and like I said, no worries about the water. We handle all that with the civil engineering. I know people think it's an adobe house, but it looks like an adobe house, but it's not. It's poured in place concrete. And although it isn't a nice little old house, there's been 3 historians looking at it, and they all seem to have the same opinion. And I guess that's about all I wanted to say. We're very workable. We think it's a nice, humble, subtle design, nice and low, kind of a house mixed in with the trees, and that was always our goal from the beginning.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Any questions from the commissioners for the applicant's architect? Or any further explanation or? Okay. Great. I guess at this time then, I guess we'll let the public comment. We'll take the public comment section if there's anybody waiting, or give them the time to call in. That's okay. Three minutes. Okey doke. Sorry. Sorry. I'm back. All right. I guess everybody that said what they were gonna say have written in, so I guess the next thing is we'll bring it back to the Planning Commission. Anybody want to give their thoughts on this project? Hello?
Start.
Go ahead, Peggy.
Well, I like a good architect designed house. It responds to the site well and maintains a low profile. Also, the square footage, although high, is not out of range for the properties of its size from the charts I saw. See in there, only taking out 2 trees that are right next to the proposed structure. I did, when I was walking the site in response to one of the letters that we got in, the person suggested it's a historic house because it's one of the last adobe houses and it's actually cast concrete. It's not adobe. Neither of them are adobe. And so that's not a thing. Of all the concerns, I think the drainage is still a really big concern because of the many issues. The swales there, they may be getting cross-site drainage. The neighbors downhill are affected, and so it'd be nice to remediate that situation somehow, you know, with this project, but, you know, the project should take responsibility for it. So yeah, the drainage is the big thing, but I was reading the requirements here, and it sounds like if the civil engineer follows them, it should be okay, but it's still my big concern, but it's not keeping me from thinking the project meets.
Thank you, thank you. Bob or John or Tom, wherever, oh, there you are, Tom.
Okay. We've heard from the public certain concerns. I think the historical concerns have been addressed by the report. I was pretty happy with them. I don't know, you know, we've talked about putting plaques in front of buildings that were of some significance to the city of Sierra Madre, but I don't think we done that yet. So I don't know what that looks like. So if somebody asks me, do they tell them, well, look at in the street in front of it, or is there going to be a big rock with this plaque on it? I don't know, but I think the acknowledgement by the plaque will fulfill it. It will mark the historical nature of the property. So the historical pushback. And I agree with Peggy. It's a poured concrete building. It's not adobe. It looks like adobe only because, and so, so those issues that we've heard from the public, I think, have been addressed with that. On the plus side, you know, it's a large lot, and the shallow roof height, which is actually almost 2 feet less than what is there now, fits well underneath all those. The trees are going to do a great job of mitigating the appearance of this. So it's going to be tucked in there well. I have no problem with that. It's going to be, it has low horizontal massing. It'll be obscured by the trees, and it does not interfere with the neighbor's privacy. So for a little while, I was thrown off by the position of the fencing that's going to go around behind the garage, but the fencing is not on the property line. So the fencing, while next to the garage, does not represent the setback. And so, you know, that I think that's important to note. I totally agree with Peggy that there is the water runoff. We've heard from a number of people, and it's somewhat unresolved. I would like to ask that City Public Works look at whatever the drainage is off the road, because I think that may be an element of what's going on. If you walk up to the corner, there's some kind of dry sump concrete circular device up there that may have in the past addressed this water issue, and as it was full of sand, so maybe in the past they tried to fix that. But if the water is on the street, and then the city has some responsibility to keep that water from flooding onto that person's property. So I'd like to see some kind of effort by the city to mitigate its side of that, and that way it may then make the job of the homeowner and the civil engineer a lot easier in terms of how much water we're trying to abate in this issue. So I'd like to see that in. Other than that, I think I can make the findings without a problem. The architect has done a great job. It's consistent. Both buildings are, you know, fit nicely, and it's tucked in there well enough so that I don't think it's going to cause anybody any heartburn in terms of appearance or anything else. So yeah, I can make the findings.
Great, thank you. John, you're up. You're
Okay.
on. Go ahead.
Well, I concur with my fellow commissioners on generally on that I like the general design. I appreciate the applicant's attention to the water infiltration and working on the drainage. I like the concept of the internal courtyard. I also don't think there's really an issue here with the historic structures. I concur with the expert testimony that we've received from the reports. And I think, in fact, even more important than the plaque is putting the archive in the city library's records, because then that'll be available for anyone. But I am concerned with the overall appearance of bulk and massing. I think there's no getting around that this is a large building. It's very near the limit of square footage. It's one of the biggest in the neighborhood, but it's not really the size itself that's an issue. It's how that size shows itself, and the appearance of bulking, massing, and the ability to meet the findings. And when you have a small property, a small structure, it's really easy to make all the findings, even if, perhaps it's not the most exquisite design, because there's not that much there to impose. But when you get a bigger one like this, I think you really need to think about ways that you can design around and minimize the appearance of massing, as opposed to doing things that will increase. And so here, with the internal courtyard, for instance, I think that's a great design element for the residents, and it's going to be a great livability factor. But because it's entirely walled in from the outside, it's going to read from the outside like the house is, 700 or 800 square feet bigger than it is. And so instead of looking at a house, the appearance of a house that's sort of, 100 or so square feet underneath the limit, it's going to read like one that's at least 500 square feet over the limit. And I think that when you go on the site, you see the existing buildings there and the way they're tucked into the trees. And one of the things that first struck me when I got on the site is the sort of see-through between the two buildings. And it was almost like the buildings weren't there because your eyes were drawn through the open space. And so if we close those in, what you're going to get is just one big massing. And the western elevation itself, is the least interesting, but it's the most visible from the street, because that's where there's the driveway opening. And sadly, a lot of the other elevations are really interesting and really nice. And so you've got the laundry room in prominent place facing out towards the driveway opening, and you got this big block. And I know that a lot of people are really happy with the fact that this is only one story, but I think given the fall in elevation and the height of the trees, on this site, you can actually hide a lot more of the massing by bringing some two-story elements in and then opening up that courtyard so it had visual see-through, so it wouldn't read as one big mass building. So I would very much prefer that if that courtyard were broken out, some of the massing moved either up or some other place, so that there would be a little bit more of a see-through, and it would be as if those buildings were in amongst the trees, as opposed to, I think what you're going to have when you take out some of the oak trees is you're going to have oaks on the outside and a big mass in the middle. I think also that it would be helpful if some of the plans that we had were a little bit better at showing what's going to get built. It would be great if we had the site plan with the existing building with the new building overlaid onto it, so you can see exactly how those footprints line up. Because I think when you do that, and you show the external patios and the little walls that are shown on some of the plans, it's going to be readily apparent that this building is a lot bigger than the footprint of the existing buildings. I also think that some of the different plans don't line up. For instance, on the sort of 3D rendering things, there's these exterior patios with walls around them, and those aren't shown on the elevations. There's also a trellis on the landscape plan that's not shown on the other plans. And on the sort of first main plan, it shows some of the oak trees, which I think are going to be removed. And so it's sort of misleading as to, like, if you have that big oak tree right next to it that's sort of over the top, it's gonna sort of hide the whole thing. But if that oak tree is going to be removed, you're going to see just a big blank wall. And with regard to the oak trees, I think it's perfectly fine to lose 2 oak trees to take those out. But I have serious concerns and reservations about some of the other oak trees that are so close to the property. And, you know, I take the applicant and his architect at face value that they're going to do all sorts of mitigation measures. But even with the best mitigation measures, if you're building a building right up close near, you know, and underneath the drip line of an oak tree, you stand a decent chance of losing that tree. And so if you go from 2 trees to, I don't know, 5, maybe more that come out, you're going to start to, the building is going to start to be, you know, again, a lot more visible. Finally, one of the emails we got is from the current tenant who said that they weren't given appropriate notice. And, you know, I feel for that tenant, but city attorney can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think any issues of lease violations or whatever are something that we can consider as part of our application. That's really between the property owner and the tenant.
That's correct, Commissioner Hutt.
Thank you. Tom?
I agree with Commissioner Spears and Dallas about this project. I think that keeping it to 1 story fits in well with the siting of the plan. I mean, the lot size is over half an acre. The lot coverage is at only 22%, which is, you know, almost 50% smaller than they could be doing on the site. Setbacks are enormous. They've cited it well. They're only taking out 2 of all those oak trees. So I think that they've really done some responsive design for the site as it lays, and stayed under the allowable square footage that they have. So I thought it was a good project, and I can make the findings.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Tom. So I live in the neighborhood. I go down that street all the time, and I see those 2 houses that are kind of disarticulated from each other. I'm a little bit in the middle. There's a house on Highland that reminds me of a sort of a 2-phase project that kind of addresses what John's talking about, where you have this instead of a courtyard, and he's dealing with a major drainage, and he actually has 2 buildings that kind of connect each other. When I first saw the design, I thought that, well, 2 things. One, that the front of the house really is the least attractive aspect of the house, and that can be opened up a little bit more with, and like John pointed out, there's more bulking because of that internal courtyard. And although I'm glad it's only 1 story, I don't think you could mitigate that by having 2-story elements, even though it drops 15 feet. Although there's some opportunity to change it, but it would be nice if it didn't look, as John said, like the house was all in the back. I get it why they did that with the garage and everything from the approach, but it's almost, and I guess we shouldn't be too critical of people that want to build a house the way they want to live in it. But from the curb appeal and just the way the house is massed, I thought there could be some changes where it could be, you could open up that courtyard. I understand why they want it, but I sort of agree with John, there's some bulking. On the other hand, for the most part, you know, the 1-story element, the sensitivity to the other landscape and trying to make it fit in, and it's a large property. I still think that it overall fits into the property itself. And I kind of would, you know, wish it would be reversed just for aesthetics point of view, but overall it meets most of the other requirements. Maybe I'd like to open it up maybe to the architect if he wants to maybe further discuss his reasoning for that. I mean, sounds like the other 3 are probably in favor of it, but I'd like to maybe just entertain that if he would be open to maybe changing some of the design on his own rather than asking for a vote. Or just add in, even if it has to do with what the client wanted.
My rationale for why the design was?
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is there's some aspects of it. I have a little concerns like John that the bulk and mass with the internal courtyard and the house rotated to the front has a certain overall mass of the house looks bigger than it is, and that it's almost like the front of the house is in the back. That would be my concern. If you want to talk about the internal courtyard massing, that would be.
I'm unsure about the front of the house being in the back. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, the roadside, I mean, the front row of the house is backed by the garage, correct?
Oh, well, well, okay, yes, that was a feng shui. That was a cultural, there was a feng shui master that came out to the site, and he had a little bit to do with some of these things.
Okay.
Yeah, and as far as the side facing cannon, the goal there, sorry, let me close this door. The goal with the random shed roofs coming down was really to get the house, as low as possible on that side, because those shed roofs keep coming down, and they're kind of variegated. The side of the house that faces the driveway is a little bit symmetrical, and we wanted the side that faces Cannon to be a little bit more rambling, which is why it has all the offsets, and there's kind of a high roof in the middle, and there's kind of two shed roofs that come down on each side of it. It's a lot of houses in this style, they're not like Italianate houses where they have an arch in the middle and 3 windows on each side. We wanted a little bit of a rambling character, and frankly, some of these houses, sometimes they almost look like maybe they've been added on to once or twice over the years. So, they're, what do you call it? A planned imperfection, maybe? We could make each side totally symmetrical and perfect if we wanted to, but that's kind of not, these houses are normally, they're a little bit rambling and a little imperfect, and we tried to build in a little imperfection.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. I guess I could say imperfection and informality, maybe that would be a better word. Maybe informality.
Okay, very good. Well, I mean, I can live with it the way it is. I think I'll bring it back if anybody else wants to make any further comments, or we can, I guess I should probably bring it out, let one more chance for a public comment, or do you guys want to say something else first?
I did have something to add.
Go ahead,
heard
Tom.
with Commissioner Hutt that when we have the overlay of the design on top of the, so the proposed overlaid with the existing, it's a lot more helpful in seeing this. So I would like to encourage applicants, or I think that sometimes the planners themselves have put that together for us, just to show us that overlay that is useful. And I think if I'm reading the plan correctly, the house is about 73 feet long, and it only has 5 feet of elevation change from the north side to the south side. So I'm not sure that I fully understand where there would be room to put second story massing over a 5-foot fall at 72 feet long. But I guess that's neither here nor there.
That's okay. That's fine. All right. Go ahead, Peggy.
I'd like to respond to Commissioner Hutt on the massing. It's a relatively level site along a relatively level portion of the road, and you're only going to see the sides of the house for the most part. And the house is put sort of, no side is really parallel to the road, so it's sort of angled. Not going to get a real sense of a flat face at any point necessarily. And the sides are really well articulated, and they're varied. I'm just really not understanding. If you think of it as just a simple rectangle with a hole in the middle taking up, space that precedes more massing, it would seem unpleasant, but it's nicely articulated and set back and angled from the property lines and the roads. And I'm just not seeing the massing problem, to be perfectly honest, from my architect.
Okay. Thanks, Peggy. All right. Well, I guess I'll give the public one more chance to chime in on this, and then we can discuss having someone make a motion. Can we go ahead and do that, Vince? Thank you. All right. Did the counter freeze or something? Or did I just freeze?
No, it looks like the counter froze.
All right, well, we'll just talk, and if somebody chimes in the next minute or so, we'll let them talk. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we approve discretionary demolition permit 20-02 and design review permit 20-06 as presented.
Second that,
Go ahead, Peggy.
second it.
Second, oh, second. Okay, we have a second. All right, we have a second. Those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, passes 4-1. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And can I just add for the record that the findings that I would have trouble making are 3, 4, and 8.
Very good. Thank you. All right. So we'll move on to, yes, where are we? Oh. Planning Commission reports. Anybody on the commission have anything other than the 4th of July to talk about?
I have a question for staff. So in the application for this project, we saw an outstanding arborist report. The guy was very thorough. Did a great, I mean, it was well done. And I can remember a time when Commissioner Dallas and I went by a site on Mariposa where the guy was going to put the foundation for the house within 4 feet of the oak tree. And Commissioner Hutt asked him a question like, well, if we dug down a swimming pool, would it be okay? And the arborist was in front of us and said, oh yeah, it wouldn't be a problem. And now we're looking at a whole nother architect who is separating out the size of roots around the tree. So I'm getting the sense here that these arborist reports run from fruit to nuts, and we have to take whatever the applicant hires here and gives us. And, you know, at the time on Mayor Post, I'm like, really? Is that true? But not being an arborist, I can't, you know, throw a flag. Is there any way that we can get a second opinion or some kind of better information? Because, you know, we ask these questions and we get answers and we have to deal with what we're told, whether they're kind of kosher or not.
We had similar discussions regarding historic resource evaluation reports. And
Yes.
one of the ways we were able to remedy that was to sole source to a single, or we can do a few, like we had originally on our list of historic resource evaluation. We had a list of 20 people that we would select from, and it would vary in terms of number. But even then, it was, we were getting very different results. So we decided the city council direction to sole source. And that was another way of reducing costs to the applicant. And that's what we do now. Certainly that would be a decision or discussion that could be brought forth before the city council for direction to move forward with something of that nature.
We know, do we still have a tree commission? I don't think so. I think they got, where did it go? Because it would seem a natural thing for the tree commission to recommend to the city council that, hey, you know what, we're seeing too much variation here in recommendations, and I don't know, it comes to us and we're not always the, you know, the tree people.
Right, maybe that's something, a question that can be brought before the ENR commission, environmental commission in the city.
All right, very good. All right, anything from staff?
We have one more meeting in July. July 15th is our next meeting. That will still be a Zoom meeting. We've already noticed that property, signboard notification of property owners. It's another design review. It's actually a modification to a design review permit that was presented before the Planning Commission, 62 East Carter. So that third structure on the site, the primary new residence, has a new architect, and they made some modifications to it. It's still retaining its 2-bedroom footprint. So that will be our next review. Anticipated going live, possibly, well, back in the council chambers for our first meeting on August 5th, if things proceed as they are and we receive no further direction, either from the state or LA County.
Very good. Thank you.
Prisoner.
Go ahead.
So my internet went unstable just as Commissioner Spears was talking about the tree commission. I don't know if that point got resolved, but the tree commission is part of ENR now.
Okay.
So they handle that. So if Commissioner Spears' recommendation, we could take it to ENR to for them to consider his request.
Right. Yeah, that was okay. Thank you. Anything else? And I guess we'll wish everybody a happy 4th and adjourn to our meeting of July 15th. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.